you know, I'm Director of Community Engaged Learning at Drake University, and so I chose a program that our office manages for this evaluation. It's called the Service Learning Ambassador Program. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about this program as well as then what we were aiming to dig into. But first, your role. You are a generous donor. I know it's the dream of all doctoral students that we're going to have tons of money someday, and I'm hoping to be able to tap into you in the coming years when you're rolling bank and ask for money for my program. So Drake's Office of Community Engaged Learning has invited you here today to learn about this program, and we have hopes that you will make a generous donation at the conclusion. So about the SLA program. We started in 2012 as a way for our office to expand the capacity to reach more students. So in 2011, Drake hired their very first service learning coordinator to help faculty and staff, help faculty connect their courses and students to community engagement. As you can imagine, with an institution of about 5,000, that's with our graduate school, to have one person in the entire university doing that is a pretty daunting task. So the director at the time had the idea of developing this program in which we would hire 6 to 8 students a year to work within the office with a community partner and expand capacity on site for that partner to take more Drake volunteers, as well as then working with faculty who are incorporating these volunteer experiences into their coursework. Fast forward to 2019, service learning looks much different at Drake than the vision this coordinator had in 2012. Thus, the program has advanced and evolved, and the outcomes that were created in 2012 are no longer, the assumption is they're no longer applicable and they need to evolve. So this evaluation was intended to be formative in developing new learning outcomes and assessing if those are accurate. So a couple of examples of the students and where the program is right now. So we have students who are doing next course food recovery. So Rachel presented on this last night. The way Drake sustains that food recovery project is to actually pay 2 students. We hire them in our office to be the leads of that organization. And so they coordinate the volunteers, they go and do the recoveries themselves, and are kind of responsible for the programming. We also have a student organization that's affiliated with this group, and sometimes the students who work in our office are also involved in that student organization, but it's not a requirement. We have a garden on campus that initially started as a grant in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, and it's directly across the street now from where the new Boys and Girls Club will be opening this fall. We have a student who coordinates and manages and tends to the garden. Alternative spring break. We take students across the country to different places. This year they went to Piney Ridge in Kentucky area and did trail restoration and environmental type of work. College access is another one. This is from our most recent visit of Findlay Elementary first graders. More than 100 Drake faculty, staff, and students formed a tunnel. And as the 45 first graders came onto campus, they were clapping and welcoming. And if you can see the joy in that little boy's face, we got really great feedback from this. So that's a couple of examples of the types of programming that our students as undergrads are managing in order to get more students involved. So, oftentimes when we talk about our program, we talk about this yellow box. What's the output? We know the number of volunteers, maybe the number of courses we engage, 4,000 pounds of food every year is recovered, volunteer hours, etc. But that doesn't tell us the impact of what's happening to the student or to our campus, or where I look at is the world, right? I see our role as creating change makers for the world. So where I wanted to focus, where we need to shift our attention is to what is the long-term impact. And specifically, the goal is to develop an engaged campus, which will inspire civic-minded professionals who will go out and long-term strengthen communities. Pretty large objective, or large goal. So I zoomed in on that midterm goal. Are the students participating in our program being developed as civic-minded professionals? So what is a civic-minded professional? According to researchers at IUPUI, a civic-minded professional is one who is skillfully trained through formal education with ethical dispositions as a social trustee of knowledge and the capacity to work with others in a democratic way to achieve public good. What we know from this research is that community engagement experiences prepare students with the skill set that employers and the workforce want, as well as the skill set and the empathy and the disposition to make critical changes in our community. So you'll see things like critical thinking and problem solving, empathy, teamwork, taking action, having the knowledge, and being able to apply that. We have some existing data from our program. End of year surveys, our students track their activities, my assistant director does exit interviews every year, but those things weren't geared towards the questions related to the civic-minded professional. So we wanted to zoom in on what knowledge, skills, and attitudes or dispositions are SLAs retaining as a result of, developing and retaining as a result of this program. So to answer this main question, I engaged in a mixed methods approach. So IUPUI has a civic-minded graduate questionnaire, and I'll go through that here in a little bit, but it was directed at specifically these two questions. That's the tool I was using to get at these two. Does our SLA program develop civic-minded professionals? And if so, what skills, knowledge, attitudes, etc. are the strongest ones that are developed? And then I also interviewed alumni as well as a couple of current students to understand what does this look like post-graduation? What does their involvement in the community look like? What aspects of the program have had a lasting impact? So as I mentioned, the civic-minded graduate questionnaire is broken down into these 4 categories. There's 30 Likert scale questions, which at first I thought was going to be overwhelming, but every participant I had eight participants, got it done and said it was actually helpful because it helped them reflect on their experience. So under knowledge, we have volunteer opportunities. Do you know where to find them? How to get involved in your community? Academic knowledge and technical skills. Are you able to apply what you were learning in the classroom and see that in the work that you're doing through community? And then contemporary social issues. What do you know about the world around us? Skills. Are you able to listen to perspectives different than your own? Diversity. Are you able to work across difference and building consensus with that, right? And understanding that we have different opinions, but where can we create the commonality to move forward in action? Dispositions. Do you value community engagement? Self-efficacy, are you seeing yourself as an actor, or do you have a role in this work? And then social trustee of knowledge. Do you see your specific role as a professional with the responsibility to actually go out and make positive change with that? And lastly, behavioral intentions. So this is intended for undergraduate students, and what are you going to do in the future? And the way I adapted it was then I took these questions, rephrased them, and said, did your SLA experience, da-da-da-da-da-da. And when I got to behavioral intentions, I rephrased them as, since graduating, have you voted? Have you planned an event, etc.? So as I mentioned, I had 8 participants. I had 9 alumni. I used Facebook as my medium to track them down, and I was only able to get 8 to participate in the survey, and 8 interviews as well. And then I also mentioned I interviewed 3 current students. This is a breakdown of the majors that those students had. So as you'll see, we're predominantly heavy in social sciences, which is not a surprise. But you may be surprised that our next largest is environmental science. That's in part due to the food recovery program as well as the Sprout Garden program and who it attracts to the position. So my analysis, it wasn't as fancy as you all who did these bar charts, and I'm going to go back and do that because I thought that was a great way to represent the data. I was doing that, but in my own way. So I had color-coded the responses, but I didn't have the time to get in and actually convert it to numbers so I could do the bar charts like you did. And then my future steps is to go back through the interviews. I haven't had a chance to really dig into that in a more formal way to then come up with the themes. I have some that relate in the interviews, at least for today's purpose, informed or shed light on things that this questionnaire was not able to. And so some of that will come out today. But future is to actually go through those and compare them and map them to what we have drafted as our intended outcomes, and to see where there is alignment as well as gaps. So in total, we've had 44 students serve in these positions, and out of that 44, only one male. So clearly we have some work to do in terms of gender diversity. We also have some work to do in terms of ethnic and racial diversity. We've only had 5 students of color and 2 international students serve in these positions. And then I thought this was really important as well. 60% of our students we only have for 1 year. And so to think about what do we really have the ability to do in 12 months changes the scope of what those learning outcomes are gonna look like. And here's what I found. Everything that's yellow, we're doing really, really strong in. The green is where we have some significant room for growth. So in the green, there was at least, everybody was pretty much in the agreement, but there was 1 or 2 who were not. Part of that is due to the fact that the program has shifted, and several of my participants were from the very early years where there was not an emphasis on those things. If we were to administer this to the current students, I would imagine the colors would shift, right? We would see a lot more emphasis in listening, diversity, and contemporary social issues because of changes we've made to the program. This is what I hope to do based off what I saw last night. And then most importantly, I think, is the quotes, because you hear directly from the students. So there was 3 themes that emerged just in the open-ended questions on the survey. And one is community engagement. So it's clear that our students have the disposition to be involved in community. SLA Opportunity enabled me to see myself as an active participant in how I saw the community developing for the better. Career and professional outcomes. This was an unintended outcome. It's not stated, it's stated that you'll develop skills, but specifically everyone honed it in the interviews as well, honed in on how the skills that they developed were applicable to the workforce. And once again, that goes back to the construct of the civic-minded graduate and what we know about how these skills prepare you. And lastly, reflecting back, it's somewhat difficult to identify whether it was because of my SLA experience or my SLA experience in my academics. So it was a significant theme around academic integration. And once again, this unintended finding that the thing that SLAs are most grateful for is the fact that this gives them a place to apply what they're learning in the classroom into the real world in a way that they're not finding in their classes as well as other positions and programs on campus. My limitations definitely were timing. It's end of year, people are busy, so that's why I focused intentionally on our alumni, because we wanted to see what the longer term effects were. And I also did not include community partners, which I think would be a really important aspect, right? Particularly with our current students, observing them at their projects, talking with the supervisors on site. And then lastly, okay, that was not supposed to be like that. This is the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and behind it is Drake's inspiration statement. Together, we transform lives and strengthen communities. I wholeheartedly believe that this is one example of a program that's helping us develop civic-minded professionals. But why? What's the point? The point is we have wicked problems in the world that need solved, and we need people equipped with the skills, disposition, and knowledge to tackle those. And so I encourage you to consider a gift to this program to help develop tomorrow's future leaders.